This is Tom Doody, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Doody in a Google search from my site. I left some words about where I am, why I'm here at the end, and more about my purpose. I'll be reading the words of Markus Feldenkirchen, who wrote and posted this. He is a professional, a media pro of Spiegel, Spiegel.com. Spiegel.com is a sibling organization to Der Spiegel, and together there is some separation between them, but together there is also some unity. The publication is described, or the organization is described by The Economist, a British magazine, as one of the best investigative publications in Europe. And this is I get from this that, because I know The Economist and I don't know Der Spiegel because they write in English or they write in German. I only know what they write in English. But I sense the Economist compliment is a little bit self-serving, because I think The Economist and Der Spiegel are very similar. I think what The Economist credits Der Spiegel for, it would like to see itself as earning the same compliment. I'm one person who believes they're entitled to that compliment, which is a credit to excellent investigative journalism. That's Der Spiegel, or Spiegel.com. Again, Markus Feldenkirchen posted this text on Spiegel.com, June 26, 2015. Confronting the past, America finally turns its attention to rampant racism. The murders in Charleston had plunged the U.S. into a debate about racism. Why is it only now that America is having an honest debate about racism? The dead from Charleston are also the dead of a nation that has long refused to work through its past mistakes. The United States excels in dealing with the injustices of other countries. They often even help other countries to cope with their shameful past. Germany will always be grateful to the U.S. for sending American troops across the Atlantic to defeat the Nazis, and for insisting the Germans be held accountable for the crimes they committed. The Nuremberg trials gave the Germans an opportunity to own up to what they had done. They could no longer deny it. The U.S. has been less successful, however, in conducting the same process when addressing the dark parts of its own past. This includes its treatment of Native Americans who were brutally repressed or even killed in order to clear the way for Western expansion. They were betrayed, neglected, disrespected. Today they live on reservations in some of the saddest living conditions a civilized world has to offer. Americans seem even more forgetful when it comes to the history of blacks who were once snatched from their homes, forced into ship galleys, and kept like animals for centuries. Even after the end of the Civil War, the official abolition of slavery, it took another 100 years before the discriminatory racial laws were finally lifted. To this day, the U.S. has never issued a formal apology nor made any attempts to redress, let alone compensate. Instead, many patterns of institutionalized racism still exist. When a clean break from the past is not made, it may be difficult for the people to part with the old ways of thinking. Indeed, not only do many Americans continue to hold twisted notions of superiority of whites, But these beliefs often go unchallenged. Imagine 150 years have passed since the United American Civil War ended, and only now has a national debate begun over whether some of the symbols of the South are inappropriate. 9 black people had to die in Charleston, executed by a white Nazi, adorned with the Confederate flag and other symbols of alleged white supremacy. It seems that there was never a thought given to the fact that the South went to war against the North partly in order to defend their right to continue to hold blacks like animals, to be part and put them in chains, and to beat them when they were down. How is it that for many politicians, the American citizens, this flag has only now become a little embarrassing? Why are people only now asking whether it's a good idea to name streets and public spaces after the greatest generals in the fight for slavery? They may have been brave soldiers, but if they're fighting for a despicable cause, they should not have monuments built in their honor. Unless, of course, we believe that what they stand for is not really so reprehensible. On the Mall in Washington, and not somewhere in Germany, one can find one of the best and most poignant Holocaust museums in the world. Yet, similarly impressive monuments dedicated to the history of slavery, to racist policies throughout American history, or to the treatment of Native Americans are missing. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, is enshrined on the Mall in a monument fit for a deity. The fact that Jefferson was in fact himself a brutal slave owner is something one only learns at his former estate in Monticello. Perhaps not surprisingly, the fact is not prominently displayed. To date, the American treatment of its own dark past is so ignorantly passive, so intentionally vague, so in denial that it begs the question, do the majority of Americans feel any guilt or acknowledge any wrongdoing toward blacks and Native Americans? Every nation has dark spots in its past, and nowhere are those spots darker than in Germany. However, the greatest of a country is reflected in how it deals with its past, whether it critically examines it. In this respect, the United States is not the great nation it believes itself to be. And fiend. End of words of Markus Feldenkirchen. Beginning some post comments. NYC Subterranean. 1 train, downtown deck. Columbus Circle. It's the intersection of Broadway, 59th Street, and 8th Avenue, Central Park West. 8th Avenue, Central Park West used to all be 8th Avenue. Now Central Park West is the name of the part of 8th Avenue that extends north from this circle. And 8th Avenue continues to be the name of the avenue that runs south of this circle. The circle is famous for a lot of reasons. The most famous Hollywood scene is probably, well, there's a lot of Hollywood scenes, but I think the most famous is Ghostbusters, chanted by Disney with Amy Adams and some guy. Also was filmed here. 1492, the Columbus sailed the ocean blue. 400 years later, this circle was dedicated to his accomplishment. We credit him for discovering America, though historical evidence says it's kind of not really true. Yet another 100 years, yet another century to that 1892 when the circle was dedicated. You get 1992. Listeners, please do the math with me. 1492 and 500 gets you to 1992. Now, if there's a huge celebration in 1492 when the circle was dedicated and Chris was enshrined on stone as he is in the thumbnail of this YouTube video, then in 500 years, this is a half a millennium, this is even a bigger celebration. But no, it was muffled. I don't remember this country celebrating the 500-year anniversary of Chris's historic voyage, discovering America. In part, that 100 years was not kind to Chris's reputation. He went from rock star, enshrined in stone above this circle, to kind of a guy we attempted to distance ourselves from. It took place slowly. Over 100 years, it didn't happen with scandal. There was no Monica Gate. There was no Lance Armstrong gets his titles removed. Chris still gets credit for what he was credited for, but his popularity, his rock star status was less over that 100-year period. And today, I think it's stable. I don't think it's continued to decline, it being the reputation and the rock star status of Christopher Columbus. So I have come here on this day. Today is a national holiday to honor the nation's birthday, 4th of July. Today's the 3rd of July. And I believe I can take part in this little exercise I've developed, inspired by the works of Markus Feldenkirchen. And while reading a highly critical history of my country, I can still do it feeling patriotic. Just because I shine a little light, validate some words of some foreigner who's being highly critical of my country, I can still do that while feeling patriotic. I don't completely discredit everything this country has done just by featuring some faults, some criticism, any more than I would feel like less than a human being by highlighting and reconciling with some of my own faults, some of my own mistakes, some of my own mistakes through omission. So here I am on the national holiday, the day designated to celebrate or mark the nation's birthday, which formally is tomorrow. This is every year on July 4th, but we know that the Declaration of Independence wasn't signed on July 4th. It happened a few days later, and maybe even a month later, maybe even in August. And this had to do with logistics, preparing the document, getting the people back together again to sign it. It was agreed to on the 4th. All of our holidays, we can pick them apart. Thanksgiving can just be torn apart in its historical relevance and this union of Native Americans and settlers that we celebrate that we kind of understand didn't happen. Thanksgiving is still an awesome holiday, and it's an awesome American holiday. You sort of have to sit at dinner and realize we've gathered for purpose, for national purpose, for family, for breaking bread, and understanding that we, as the holiday itself, has some flaws. The Liberty Bell, come to understand, historical studies says, the Liberty Bell didn't ring on to bring attention to independence. The Liberty Bell wasn't cracked at that time, but there's reasonable historic evidence saying the Liberty Bell is celebrated for some other reason than the fact that it rang out liberty. be a nice story if it actually did. Kind of have to forget that as we celebrate the Liberty Bell. There is reasonable historic evidence that the Betsy Ross house is actually Betsy Ross's neighbor's house. This has to do with some screwy thing that seems to be perfect when you live in Philadelphia, or I live in New Jersey outside of Philadelphia. It just seems like the kind of thing Philadelphia would do. Oops, we ruined Betsy Ross's house. Now we're only left with Betsy Ross's neighbor house. It was very much like Betsy Ross's house. So my point is these things, the Liberty Bell, Betsy Ross's house, July 4th, that's not really July 4th that we signed the Declaration of Independence, but we use July 4th as the date. Thanksgiving, a litany of problems, historical inaccuracies with the folklore that goes into that date. But these are still icons of liberty, icons of democracy, icons of this country, dates that we celebrate, and they are legitimate in entirety. With flaws, but they in whole are wonderful representations of democracy, of this country, of liberty. So, again, much like the words of Markus Feldenkirchen, who highly critical account of this country and our inability, our failure to deal with racism. However I can read these words, I can feel American, I can feel patriotic, and I can feel it's appropriate to be here in Columbus Circle, the man who still stands high on the pillar, the stone column in the center of Columbus Circle. His height has not changed where he's enshrined there in stone. However, his reputation, his rock star status has waned. And this country is not declining. In some ways it is. But in the spirit and the strength of its people, it stands strong today. And on this holiday, I emotionally feature some faults while I personally celebrate the strengths of my country, while I personally feel patriotic. This has been Tom Doody, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Doody in a Google search for my site. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, good evening, or restful night's sleep. Ciao.